Welcome to the Dark History Podcast. I'm your host, Ben Carter. In the heart of occupied Poland, some 60 kilometers southeast of Lublin, lay the Sobibor extermination camp, one of the three dark epicenters of Operation Reinhard. Sobibor, alongside Belzec and Treblinka, was designed not as a labor camp or a prison, but as a pure instrument of genocide, an assembly line for the systematic eradication of the Jewish people. Sobibor, like its sister camps, was meticulously designed to maximize efficiency and to minimize evidence. The victims arrived on trains at a deliberately deceptive reception area, complete with flower gardens and a brass band playing light Viennese waltzes. They were then led to undressing barracks under the pretense of being disinfected for lice. From there they were herded through the so-called tube, a narrow fenced pathway leading directly to the gas chambers. The extermination process at Sobibor was swift and brutal. The victims were packed into the gas chambers, which were then sealed. The camp personnel would then start the engines, pumping carbon monoxide into the gas chambers. Within 20 to 30 minutes, all inside would be dead. The bodies were then extracted and taken to the cremation pits, where any evidence of the gruesome act was reduced to ashes. A chillingly efficient operation, Sobibor claimed the lives of an estimated 200,000 people in a span of just over a year, from May 1942 to October 1943. Yet, as abhorrent as these facts are, they do not tell the whole story. In the midst of this machinery of death, there were individuals, each with their own story of life, loss, and resistance. One such individual was Alexander Pechersky, a Soviet POW, who arrived at Sobibor in late September 1943. Unlike most who arrived at the camp, Pechersky and his fellow Soviet prisoners were not immediately killed. Instead, they were put to work, providing the manpower that the camp's ongoing operations demanded. This unexpected reprieve gave Pechersky a chance, however slim, to resist. He began to organize a secret rebellion, recruiting other prisoners and gathering whatever weapons they could find or make. Their plan was audacious, to say the least, a full-scale revolt against the camp's guards, followed by a mass escape. The revolt took place on October 14, 1943. In a matter of hours, Pechersky and his fellow rebels managed to kill several SS officers and Ukrainian guards. Amidst the ensuing chaos, roughly 300 prisoners managed to escape, though many were later recaptured and killed. Pechersky himself survived, going on to live until 1990. His story stands as a testament to the indomitable human spirit, even in the face of unimaginable horror. Pechersky's uprising at Sobibor marked a turning point in the history of the camp. The news of the revolt spread fear among the SS officers, and the camp was closed within days of the uprising. However, Sobibor was just one of the three extermination camps that operated under the umbrella of Operation Reinhard. The other two, Belzec and Treblinka, bore a chilling similarity to Sobibor in their design and deadly efficiency. In Belzec, the extermination process began in March 1942. Like Sobibor, it was relatively small and inconspicuous, hidden away from the prying eyes of the world. The camp was equipped with 6 gas chambers and was designed to process thousands of victims daily. The method of killing was the same as in Sobibor carbon monoxide poisoning. It's estimated that around 600,000 people, most of them Jews from Poland and Ukraine, were murdered in Belzec. While Belzec was the first to start its deadly operations, Treblinka was the last of the 3 camps to be established in July 1942. It was also the largest and deadliest. Treblinka was divided into 2 parts. Treblinka I was a forced labor camp where prisoners were worked to death, while Treblinka II was a pure extermination camp, dedicated solely to the systematic murder of its victims. The gas chambers at Treblinka were initially powered by diesel engines, but they were soon replaced with more efficient petrol engines. These gas chambers could hold up to 5,000 victims at a time, and it's estimated that in just over a year of operation, between 700,000 and 900,000 people were killed at Treblinka, making it the second deadliest camp of the Holocaust, after Auschwitz-Birkenau. The extermination camps of Operation Reinhard were designed with a single, horrifying purpose: the systematic, industrialized murder of Europe's Jews. Yet even in these darkest of places, there were glimmers of resistance and humanity. Pechersky's revolt at Sobibor was not an isolated incident. At Treblinka, too, prisoners organized an uprising in August 1943, managing to break out of the camp and set parts of it on fire. Most of the escapees were recaptured and killed, but a few survived, their stories becoming vital evidence of the atrocities committed within the fences of the Operation Reinhard camps. The architects of Operation Reinhard were key figures in the Nazi hierarchy. At the helm was Reichsfuhrer SS Heinrich Himmler, who masterminded the final solution. Directly under Himmler was Odilo Globoknik, an Austrian-born SS officer appointed by Himmler to oversee Operation Reinhard. An ardent Nazi, Globoknik was devoted to the cause, and his ruthless efficiency earned him a reputation within the SS. Globoknik's staff were a team of SS officers handpicked for their loyalty to the Nazi cause and their willingness to carry out the horrific tasks assigned to them. Among them was Christian Wirth, a former police officer who had previously run a euthanasia program that killed disabled Germans. Wirth was appointed as the first commandant of Belzec due to his experience with mass murder operations. His methods were brutal even by SS standards, and he had a major role in developing the gas chambers and extermination procedures used across the Operation Reinhard camps. Another key figure was Franz Stangl, the commandant of both Sobibor and Treblinka. Stangl was known for his ability to maintain a veneer of calm and order, even as thousands were murdered daily. This veneer, however, hid a chillingly efficient approach to the mass extermination of human beings. The power structures within the camps were built around fear and brutality. The SS officers and guards ruled with an iron fist, and any sign of resistance was met with immediate, often public, execution. The majority of the day-to-day running of the camps, however, was carried out by prisoners themselves, chosen by the SS and given roles as Sonderkommandos or special commandos. They were forced to perform the most horrific tasks, such as removing bodies from gas chambers and burning them. These Sonderkommandos lived under the constant threat of death, often replaced every few months to eliminate potential witnesses to the atrocities. At the top of this perverse hierarchy were the kapos, prisoners chosen by the SS to supervise their fellow inmates. Often criminals or political prisoners, these kapos wielded power over life and death in the camps. In exchange for their cooperation, they were given better living conditions and food, but like the Sonderkommandos, they too were usually killed after a few months. This brutal system of control and cooperation was key to the functioning of the Operation Reinhard camps, allowing a relatively small number of SS officers and guards to murder millions. However, this system also created opportunities for resistance, as those within it sought ways to undermine and resist their captors. In the face of such horrifying circumstances, acts of resistance began to emerge within the Operation Reinhard camps. Against the backdrop of such brutal dominance, the prisoners found ways to fight back. The sheer scale of the atrocities committed in these camps created a unique urgency for resistance, as the captives understood that their survival was unlikely. Resistance took many forms. In some cases, it was as simple as maintaining a sense of self and humanity in a place designed to strip it away. Some prisoners kept diaries, others engaged in clandestine education sessions or religious observances, all of which were forbidden under the SS regime. Small acts of defiance like these were incredibly dangerous, but they served as vital reminders of the prisoners' humanity and dignity. There were also more organized forms of resistance. Some Sonderkommandos and kapos, who had more freedom of movement within the camps and access to information, formed secret networks. They smuggled out horrifying details of the camp's operations to the outside world. Their testimonies provided some of the first accounts of the mass extermination happening within the Operation Reinhard camps, forcing the world to confront the reality of the Holocaust. Armed resistance was rare but did occur. The most notable was the revolt at Sobibor in October 1943. A group of Soviet Jewish POWs, led by Alexander Pechersky, organized an uprising that resulted in the escape of approximately 300 prisoners. Though many were later recaptured and killed, About 50 managed to survive until the end of the war. The Sobibor revolt marked the end of the camp's operation, as the SS decided to dismantle it in order to erase evidence of their crimes. Meanwhile, at Treblinka, a revolt in August 1943 resulted in the destruction of the camp's gas chambers. Around 300 prisoners escaped during the chaos, but again, most were recaptured and killed. The Treblinka revolt, like Sobibor's, ultimately led to the camp's closure. These acts of resistance were desperate, often doomed efforts, but they stand as testament to the prisoners' indomitable spirit in the face of unrelenting horror. The revolts in Sobibor and Treblinka, in particular, reveal a crucial truth about Operation Reinhard. Despite the Nazis' best efforts to dehumanize and destroy them, the prisoners never ceased to resist, never ceased to fight for their dignity, their humanity, and their lives. As the resistance within the camps continued, the horrors of Operation Reinhard escalated, reaching unprecedented levels of cruelty and inhumanity. In the killing centers of Sobibor, Belzec, and Treblinka, the SS and their collaborators implemented innovations in mass murder, perfecting a machinery of death that was ruthlessly efficient in its purpose. The gas chambers were the heart of this machinery. Victims, herded off the transport trains, were told they were to be disinfected and sent to work. They were ordered to undress and their clothes were collected for sorting. The naked victims were then driven into the gas chambers, often with the aid of brutal beatings. Once the chamber doors were sealed, the deadly carbon monoxide gas was released. The gas chambers were not the only tools of extermination. The camp officials also employed sadistic methods of torture and random killings. Prisoners could be shot, beaten to death, or hanged for minor infractions or simply on a whim. And as if this were not enough, the living conditions in the camps themselves were lethal. Overcrowding, malnutrition, disease, and the harsh labor all contributed to a high death toll. The atrocities of Operation Reinhard were not limited to the camps. The operation also encompassed a massive plundering effort. The possessions of the victims, clothes, jewelry, money, and valuables, were collected, sorted, and shipped back to the Reich. Even the victims' hair was cut off and used to make socks for U-boat crews. The gold teeth were extracted from the corpses and melted down. This systematic looting represented an additional layer of dehumanization, reducing the victims to mere sources of raw materials. The mass murder and plunder were accompanied by a comprehensive effort to destroy any evidence of the crimes committed. Bodies were exhumed from mass graves and burned in large pits. The ashes were then spread over the fields or used as fertilizer. The camps themselves were leveled, and attempts were made to mask their former existence by planting crops or building farmhouses. This was the reality of Operation Reinhard, a systematic, industrialized process of extermination, theft, and erasure. No atrocity in the history of mankind can compare to the scale and brutality of what occurred in these camps. Yet, in spite of all this, the spirit of resistance amongst the prisoners never wavered. Despite the unimaginable horrors they faced, many found the courage to resist, to bear witness to the world, and to keep alive the flame of human dignity amidst the darkness. Within the barbed wire confines of the camps, acts of resistance took on many forms. For some, it was as simple as maintaining traditions, singing songs, or sharing stories from their past. Small acts of defiance that asserted their humanity amid the dehumanization. For others, resistance was more overt. In Sobibor, a group of prisoners managed to orchestrate a revolt in October 1943. Under the leadership of Alexander Pechersky, a Soviet Jewish prisoner of war, they killed several SS officers and camp guards, enabling around 300 of the 600 prisoners to escape. However, only about 50 managed to evade recapture and survive until the end of the war. Similarly, in Treblinka, a revolt took place in August 1943, led by a cadre of prisoners who had managed to secretly accumulate a small arsenal of weapons. They set fire to the camp and attempted a mass breakout. Around 300 prisoners escaped, but only around 100 evaded capture. These revolts, though they resulted in few survivors, represented a powerful testament to the will to resist, even in the face of almost certain death. Yet resistance was not only found within the camps. Outside, the silent complicity of the majority was pierced by a few brave voices who refused to remain silent. Jan Karski, a member of the Polish underground, risked his life to bring first-hand accounts of the atrocities to the Allies in 1942. His reports were initially met with disbelief, but eventually contributed to the broader understanding of the scale of the Holocaust. On a larger scale, the Jewish community in the Warsaw Ghetto rose up in armed revolt in April 1943. Though the uprising was brutally suppressed, it served as a beacon of resistance, a clear message that the Jewish people would not go quietly into the night. Despite the relentless machinery of death that was Operation Reinhard, the human spirit proved indomitable. The voices of resistance, both within and outside the camps, refused to be silenced. They bore witness to the unimaginable horrors, preserving the memory of those lost and ensuring that the world would not forget the atrocities committed during this darkest chapter of human history. The exposure and documentation of Operation Reinhard marked a critical juncture in the unfolding of the Holocaust. The world began to gaze, however reluctantly, upon the ghastly machinery of death, and the evidence of its monstrous efficiency became impossible to ignore or deny. In 1942, the Polish Jewish lawyer Raphael Lemkin coined the term genocide in reference to the mass extermination of Jews. His work would later form the basis for the United Nations Genocide Convention. Simultaneously, Jan Karski's reports were gaining traction, as the Allies could no longer dismiss them as mere exaggerations or fabrications. Yet, it was not until 1944 that the full-scale and systematic nature of the Holocaust were revealed to the world. Two Jewish prisoners, Rudolf Verbier and Alfred Wetzler, managed to escape from Auschwitz and documented their experiences and observations in what became known as the Verba-Wetzler Report. The report provided detailed descriptions of the camp's layout, the gruesome medical experiments, and the mass murder methods. The Verba-Wetzler report was instrumental in revealing the truth about Operation Reinhard and the broader Holocaust. The report was translated into several languages and widely disseminated, causing international shock and outcry. It provided irrefutable evidence of Nazi Germany's systematic plan to exterminate the Jews of Europe. Despite the horrifying revelations, the world's response was lamentably slow and inadequate. The Allies were slow to act on the information, and many have questioned whether more could have been done to disrupt the machinery of death or provide sanctuary to those fleeing the horrors of Operation Reinhard. In the aftermath of the war, the Nuremberg trials served as a public reckoning for the atrocities committed. Key architects of Operation Reinhard, such as Adolf Eichmann, were brought to justice, although others, like Heinrich Himmler, evaded capture. The trials exposed the full extent of the horrors perpetrated during the Holocaust and provided a precedent for international law regarding crimes against humanity. The exposure and documentation of Operation Reinhard serve as a chilling reminder of humanity's capacity for evil. Yet they also bear witness to the indomitable spirit of those who resisted, those who survived, and those who refused to forget. The accounts of this horrific chapter stand testament to the resilience of truth, even amidst the ashes of history's darkest hour. In the aftermath of the war, the world began to grapple with the magnitude of the atrocities committed during Operation Reinhard. The Nuremberg trials, held from 1945 to 1946, were a global attempt to bring the perpetrators to justice. Adolf Eichmann, one of the principal architects of the Holocaust, was captured in Argentina in 1960 and brought to Israel, where he stood trial for crimes against humanity. Convicted on all counts, Eichmann was executed in 1962, a stark testament to the severity of his crimes. Yet justice was not served for all. Heinrich Himmler, the driving force behind Operation Reinhard, committed suicide while in British custody before he could be brought to trial. Others managed to evade capture entirely, disappearing into the chaos of post-war Europe. As the world grappled with the horrors of the Holocaust, a new understanding of human rights began to emerge. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights, adopted by the United Nations in 1948, was a direct response to the atrocities committed during World War II and marked a global commitment to uphold the inherent dignity and equality of all individuals. The trials and subsequent development of international law did not erase the horrors of the Holocaust, but they did provide a measure of justice and accountability. They established that genocide, war crimes, and crimes against humanity were punishable under international law and laid the foundation for future tribunals to prosecute such crimes. Yet the legacy of Operation Reinhard extends beyond the realm of law and justice. The operation's horrifying efficiency and scale have left an indelible mark on collective memory, serving as a stark warning of the depths humanity can sink when hatred and intolerance take hold. The sites of the Operation Reinhard death camps, Belzec, Sobibor, and Treblinka, now house memorials and museums, standing as somber reminders of the atrocities committed there. They serve not only as a testament to the victims, but also as a reminder of the terrible consequences of unchecked hatred and discrimination. These memorials, together with the first-hand accounts of survivors, the documentation of the Nuremberg trials, and the stories of those who risked their lives to expose the truth, continue to bear witness to the horrors of the Holocaust. They remind us of the necessity of eternal vigilance against bigotry and intolerance to ensure that such a catastrophe is never repeated. The effects of Operation Reinhard remain etched into the fabric of societies worldwide, influencing a broad range of disciplines from law and politics to culture and education. Its legacy is threaded into the narrative of the 20th century, shaping an understanding of history and humanity that continues to evolve. In the realm of education, the Holocaust and Operation Reinhard have become central elements of curriculum worldwide. Schools across the globe teach students about the atrocities committed, aiming to instill an understanding of the devastating consequences of hate, discrimination, and systemic violence. The hope is that by educating future generations about the horrors of the past, society can work towards building a future defined by tolerance, respect, and empathy. In the field of psychology, the study of the Holocaust has led to increased understanding of the processes that enable ordinary individuals to participate in mass murder. Theories of conformity, obedience to authority, and dehumanization have all been informed by the examination of Nazi behaviors during Operation Reinhard. Politically, the Holocaust has shaped international relations and policy. The creation of Israel in 1948 provided a homeland for Jewish survivors and stood as a tangible response to the atrocities committed against the Jewish people. The Holocaust also highlighted the need for an international system to protect human rights, leading to the development of bodies such as the United Nations and the recognition of genocide as a crime under international law. Culturally, the Holocaust has permeated literature, film, and art, serving as a subject of reflection, a source of inspiration, and a warning from history. Works like Elie Wiesel's Night or the film Schindler's List have brought the realities of the Holocaust to the forefront of public consciousness, ensuring that the victims are remembered and the lessons learned are not forgotten. However, the legacy of Operation Reinhard also carries a more ominous note. The rise of Holocaust denial and distortion, a phenomenon identified by scholars and watchdog organizations, serves as a chilling reminder of the fragility of truth in the face of political manipulation and hate speech. It underlines the continuous necessity to safeguard and promote historical accuracy, empathy, and understanding. Indeed, the legacy of Operation Reinhard is complex and far-reaching. Its impact reverberates through time, challenging each generation to confront the darkest corners of human capacity, to remember the victims, and to strive for a world defined not by hate and intolerance, but by understanding, acceptance, and peace. Unresolved questions surrounding Operation Reinhard continue to haunt the pages of history. While the precise number of victims, the full extent of individual culpability, and the mechanics of the operation are largely understood, there remain gaps and ambiguities in our knowledge. The individual motivations of the perpetrators, for example, remain largely enigmatic. To what extent were they driven by ideological conviction, by personal ambition, or by fear of punishment? Did they fully comprehend the scale and nature of the atrocities they were participating in? While many were undoubtedly committed anti-Semites, the psychological state of these individuals remains a complex puzzle that scholars continue to grapple with. Moreover, the extent to which non-German populations were aware of and complicit in Operation Reinhard is a contentious issue. In Poland, for instance, debates continue to rage over the role of local populations in the Holocaust. Some argue that the Polish people were victims of Nazi terror themselves and had little knowledge of or involvement in the genocide. Others suggest that anti-Semitic attitudes and actions among Poles facilitated the operation. This remains a sensitive and unresolved issue, reflecting the broader difficulty of assessing collective guilt and responsibility during periods of intense conflict and societal collapse. The microdynamics of Operation Reinhard camps themselves also remain shrouded in uncertainty. The paucity of surviving witnesses, the destruction of official documents, and the secretive nature of the operation make it challenging to piece together a comprehensive and accurate picture of daily life and death in these camps. In reflecting on Operation Reinhard, it is important to remember that the victims were individuals with their own stories, dreams, and potential, rather than mere statistics. Each one of the millions killed represented a distinct loss, a life cut short, a family torn apart, a unique contribution to humanity denied. In this context, the true scale of Operation Reinhard's horror is incalculable. It is not merely a chapter of history, but a scar on the collective conscience of humanity, a stark reminder of the depths to which we can sink when hatred, bigotry, and indifference are allowed to flourish. As we bear witness to this period of profound darkness, we are compelled to confront the challenging questions it raises about human nature, societal structures, and the forces that can push individuals and communities towards unthinkable acts of violence. Even as we strive to answer these questions, we must also remember that understanding is not the same as absolution. The horrors of Operation Reinhard stand as a grim testament to the human capacity for evil, a capacity that must be acknowledged, understood, and relentlessly guarded against in our quest for a more humane and compassionate world. Thanks for listening. This has been the Dark History Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to follow us wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you'd like to support the show, subscribe to the Forbidden Knowledge Network on Patreon. Subscribe now.